Easements started out as a good idea. In fact, when I worked for Senator Bill Armstrong on Capitol Hill years ago, we arranged, I think, what was the first federal conservation easement in America, which was to preserve one
Hmm.
of these inholdings you talked about in Rocky Mountain
Yeah.
National Park. It was an old ranch called McGregor Ranch that was going to get purchased by the National Park Service. And there goes a century-old family farm, and all of its production. And we arranged a conservation easement that allowed it to be preserved, against housing development. But to this day, it's still a private farm. It's still generating
Yeah.
products and tax base. So there is a reason why lots of people think that's a better approach than outright federal acquisition of the land.
Sure.
The problem with it from the very beginning is these easements were always designed to be perpetual. And all over the country, in fact, the law requires in almost every state and definitely at the federal level that easements have to be perpetual or the taxpayers won't invest in it. It's a silly idea because there's no such thing as perpetual when you talk about
Of course.
land ownership. And so I'm sympathetic to farm and ranch families where they're getting old and their kids went off to college and went to the city and have no interest in running a farm now. Somebody comes along offering them more money, for an easement than they can ever hope to make on the farm. So you can't blame the farmers and you can't blame the landowners for doing that. Um, but the idea that it's perpetual means what happens 2 generations from now when the
Right.
grandkids still can't make a living farming and no longer have that option. They no longer have any way to get cash into the operation if because grandpa already sold the easement years ago.
Right.
There maybe an easement that has a term of 10 years might be worth less, but it isn't zero. And
Yes.
we ought to be able to do that rather than perpetual easements. And in most states that is still not allowed after all the years we've been talking about it.